We would like to thank the U.S. Department of Labor and OSHA for the information contained in this video. Desert Diamond Industries works every day to help ensure that all students are aware of their rights as workers before going into the workforce. Our intention is to educate and inform students to become empowered and seen as future leaders by prospective employers. Most importantly, we want all students to be aware of their rights. Our objective is to provide students with superior product safety knowledge and enable them to make lifelong informed decisions about safety in the workplace. The Occupational Safety and Health Administration, or OSHA, is an agency of the U.S. Department of Labor. The U.S. Congress created OSHA under the Occupational Safety and Health Act of 1970, the OSHA Act. Congress created OSHA to ensure the safe and healthful working conditions for working men and women by setting and enforcing standards and by providing training, outreach, education, and assistance. Until 1970, there were no national laws for safety and health hazards. According to OSHA, over 5,600 Americans die from workplace injuries annually. That means an average of 15 workers die every day from job-related injuries. Here's a short list of some of your employer's responsibilities under the OSHA Act. For a full list, go to www.osha.gov and use the search bar at the top of the page. Provide a workplace free from serious recognized hazards and comply with standards, rules, and regulations issued under the OSHA Act. Provide training required by OSHA standards. Provide medical exams when required by OSHA standards, and provide workers access to their exposure and medical records. Do not discriminate against workers who exercise their rights under the Act. Post OSHA citations and abatement verification notices, and provide and pay for PPE. Provide a workplace free from recognized hazards and comply with OSHA standards. Ensure that workers are provided with and use personal protective equipment when needed. When exposure to hazards cannot be completely eliminated from normal operations or work, and when safe work practices or other forms of administrative controls cannot provide sufficient protection. Then, an additional method of control is the use of protective clothing or equipment. This is collectively called Personal Protective Equipment, or PPE. PPE is supposed to be a last resort to protect workers. Employers must comply with the OSHA Act's General Duty Clause. The General Duty Clause, or Section 5A1 of the Act, requires each employer to furnish a place of employment which is free from recognized hazards that are causing or likely to cause death or serious physical harm to employees. The OSHA Act also requires that employers pay for the most required PPE. On May 15th of 2008, a new OSHA rule about employer payment for PPE went into effect. With few exceptions, OSHA now requires employers to pay for personal protective equipment used to comply with OSHA standards. The final rule does not create new requirements regarding what PPE employees must provide. Here's a short list of some of your responsibilities as a worker. For a full list, go to www.osha.gov and use the search bar at the top of the page. Read the OSHA poster. Follow the employee's safety and health rules and wear or use all required PPE. Follow safe work practices for your job as directed by your employer. Report hazardous conditions to a supervisor or safety committee. Report hazardous conditions to OSHA if employers do not fix them. And then finally, cooperate with OSHA inspectors. Under federal law, all employees are entitled to a safe workplace. If you have concerns, you have the right to speak up about them without fear of retaliation. Here's a short list of just some of your rights as a worker. Remember, for a full list, go to osha.gov and then use the search bar at the top of the page. You have the right to work on machines that are safe. You have the right to be trained in a language that you understand. And you have the right to be provided safety gear such as gloves, eye, face, and hearing protection. You have the right to know about and be protected from hazardous chemicals. You have the right to review records and logs about work-related injuries and illnesses. You have the right to complain or request hazard correction from employers, and you have the right to file a complaint with OSHA, request an OSHA inspection, and speak to the inspector. You have the right to participate in an OSHA inspection. You have the right to be free from retaliation for exercising safety and health rights. Remember, you always have protection from retaliation. It's illegal for an employer to fire, demote, transfer, or otherwise retaliate against a worker for using their rights under the law. If you believe you have been retaliated against in any way, file a whistleblower complaint within 30 days of the alleged retaliation. This concludes the Rights and Responsibilities video. Please be sure to hit pause and prepare for the quiz.